What's up, guys? So today I'm going to show you guys how to pull out a K24 or K20. This guide will be a little bit different just because I got a lot of things that aren't factory on here, but I'll try and kind of tell you guys what you guys are going to have to take out. And basically I'm just going to show you how I take this out, and this shouldn't be such too long of a video, so I'm just going to get right to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is make space. I'm going to take off the bumper. I am going to remove this cross section, and I am going to remove the hood. And then I will jack up the car, and I will drain the coolant, and I will also drain the tranny fluid. Take off real quick. That's it. I jack it up off the front. Pull it out the subframe. Make sure you choke the back wheels. And then don't forget your jack stands. I put one on each side on the pinch weld. The reason I do it like this is because when I go to slip the engine crane in, I don't want the legs to hit the jack stand, so that's how I do it. Lower it down onto the jack stands. Move my jack out of the way. Now, if you come under the car, you look at your radiator, there's gonna be this little drain bung. And all I'm gonna do is crack it until the coolant starts coming out of here, and open the fill, and that's it. It is a lot easier if you use a funnel, but you don't want to take this all the way out because then it'll start splashing on the subframe here and it'll just make a big mess. And I also am trying to reuse this coolant because it's brand new coolant, so just gonna let that catch. And the reason why you open this is because it just makes it flow faster. I'm gonna take out this cross piece. I only have 2 bolts holding it in. 1, 2. If this is the first time you're doing it, you can have 1, 2, 3, one on the back side, and then same on this side. You can take them all out. And then you have these 2 bolts here. You're gonna remove those just so you can flip this up out of the way. You're just gonna take it, kind of shimmy it back so that it has room to come out. I already loosened these bolts. Remove these. And if you don't want this scratching up your car, you can remove these 3 bolts. 1, 2, 3. This is for the hood latch. But all I'm going to do right now is just take it up, lift it, and just place it over here for the time being. That's going to give me enough room to pull this up and out. I'll put those bolts somewhere safe. Then I'm going to take the hood off. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then from there, I will show you how to remove the radiator. But we're going to wait for that to finish draining a little bit more. I am trying to film and do this all by myself, so just bear with me. When I'm doing this by myself, I loosen all 4 bolts, and then I fully remove the bottom bolts on both sides. Then I'll loosen this to where it's almost completely out. Nothing on the side. Hold the bottom. Close this completely. And if you do have the factory hood prop, you're gonna wanna take it out first. Don't have it standing up because then it makes it harder to pull the hood off. So I thought the coolant would have been done draining by now. It's taking a long time for some reason. So I'm gonna wait to do the radiator, and I'm going to disconnect the engine harness from the car so that when we pull it out, it won't get stuck. So you're gonna want to remove 1, 2 out of the fuse box. You're going to want to pull out this ECU. You're gonna have 3 bolts, 1, 2, 3. Also disconnect your battery first. My battery's in my trunk, it's disconnected. So yeah, you're gonna pull this back. Sorry, I'm trying to do this one hand. The clip looks like this. You're gonna push down this clip, get it off like that, then just slide it off, and that's it. These other 2 clips, they're broken, so I gotta push down manually, slide it, push down, slide it, and then just wiggle the ECU out, and that's that. Put this somewhere safe. You don't want it to get wet or damage the pins. Now I'm going to remove these 2 bolts. You can use, I believe it's an 8mm or just Phillips head. Excuse my wiring, but these 2 are an 8mm. Sometimes they strip out if you're using Phillips, the wrong size. So 8mm, easiest. They're really short bolts. Don't lose these. So all you're gonna do now is just back it off and then put these bolts back in just so I don't lose them. Disconnect C101. This is a jumper harness, so that's why mine looks like this. But basically, once the ECU is disconnected, all of this will this one will stay with the car, and these 2 will come off with the engine. So these will come off. This is the engine harness, disconnected from the, you guys will have harness coming from the cabin. You just disconnect that. This is a jumper harness, so yours will not look like this unless you got a K-swap. I will be leaving my O2 sensor and my wideband sensor in the car because I just have a V-band off the turbo. I disconnect that and basically my exhaust is off. You guys would disconnect it from your headers and go from there. I do have a lot of different things wired in, so I'm gonna have to sort this out while you guys will just have to unplug this and then go about your day. But I got my flex fuel and my wideband and my boost controller and everything wired up into here, so I'm gonna have to take care of that. Next, what I would do is remove the fan plugs off the radiator. There's 1, 2, and then you have an ECT sensor on the bottom. So I can get that for you guys. Right there, just unplug that. And then I remove this clamp and this clamp off the upper and lower rad hose, and I take the whole radiator all out as one, keeping this hose on the engine and keeping this hose on the radiator. So now the coolant has finished draining out of the radiator. I have loosened the clamps. One thing I like to do is put a drip pan underneath the thermostat, because even when it's drained out, it likes to still come out of here, just like that, and it will continuously drain for a bit. So let's do that. And I take this hose, I pull it up, and basically you just pull this radiator up and out. So I just grab the hose, make sure nothing's connected to it. Just shimmy it up out of the way. So now radiator's out of the way. Now we can get to this front mount. This is custom front mount, so it's gonna be a little bit different, but you just take the bolts out and remove it off the subframe. So we're still trying to take everything off with the motor and keep it with the motor, and then keep everything that we can with the car. So brake boost hose, take that off, and then next I will take off the alternator, because this just allows for more room for when you lift it up and bring it forward. It gives us just a little bit more space between here and frame. So next I'm going to remove the alternator. I take the belt off, take this connector off, and we're going to pull this cap back to the power wire, and that's just 10 mil I believe, and take that off. Just be gentle with it, you don't want to lose this either. Take it off, and once I take it off, I'm going to move this out of the way. That's the charge harness, and I'm going to take this nut. I'm just going to put it back on. Then we're going to loosen the tensioner. It's a 14 mil, and then 1, 2, 3, I believe they're 12 mils. I'll loosen those up and take that off. Close. So I'm going to take a 14 mil, I'll put this on this bolt. Then we'll take another wrench, just like this. I'm gonna pull it towards me. They do sell longer wrenches that you can buy, so you can get that if you want, but I just do this. Just pull it towards me, slowly releases the tension off the belt, get it off of the alternator, and slowly just let it go back, just like that. So now the belt is off, out of the way from the alternator. And then I'm just going to loosen these 3 bolts. 1, 2, 3. Those are 12 mils. And then just pull the alternator off. So I loosen these bolts up. I'm going to take the bottom 2 out first. This way the alternator is still being held by the top bolt. So I'm just going to support the alternator with my bottom, at the bottom with my hand, while I loosen this bolt at the top. They are decently long bolts. So once it's out, just take it out in one piece. One note, these are the 2 bottom bolts. They're short, and the top bolt is much longer. Can't really mix them up, because even if you try and take this short bolt, it won't even make it through. But when I put it away, just put the bolts back in their designated spots, and I put the alternator on my shelf, because you don't want to damage this or break this off. So now I'm just going to remove the intercooler and the charge piping. Loosen these up already. This is just how I gotta do mine. My intercooler and everything comes off in pretty much one piece. So I'm just going to take off my fuel line. Yours is probably going to be a little bit different if you have the stock line. That's just the little clip. So I just remove this and take this line, and I move this line out of the way. My fuel pressure regulator. I just hook this up here. So we pulled these out of the fuse box earlier. We're just going to take this, snake it down out of the way, And then we're gonna take it and just throw it up with the engine because we want this all to come out together. You want to make it very evident what's coming out and what's staying in. So this is gonna be staying in. This is part of the starter. You just want to keep everything together so that when you're pulling it out, you don't want any snags, and this makes it very easy to see if any wires are snagging that should be coming with you or should not be coming with you and staying with the body. Along with these are the other ones that we pulled out earlier, but I have some things wired up through here, so I'm gonna have to cut these, and then basically you just take this, throw it up with the rest of the harness, and this is the main harness that's going to be coming out with the engine. And then your grounds, you got one ground over on the passenger side, one ground on the tranny down here, and then I believe that's it. You got another ground up here, but the ground up here can stay with the engine. So it's just one driver side, two passenger side. Just make sure you disconnect those. So now you're gonna remove your slave. These are 14mm bolts. Just crack one, crack the other one, and then just pull them out. This way you don't have to bleed your clutch again if you do it this way. So you just remove the slave off here. There's this little pocket here. You're gonna pull it out and away. Just let that sit there. Then I just put these bolts back in so I don't lose them. And then I just take this slave, get this out of the way. You can zip tie it, ratchet strap it, whatever. Just keep out of the way. You don't want to pinch the lines or break the lines. But this way I like doing it like this because you don't have to bleed the clutch again. And then also disconnect your starter wire. This is also won't be down here for you. I believe yours will be up by the C101 plug, but because this is a swap, mine's down here. So just remove that. And then you're gonna want to disconnect your charge harness. Because my battery is relocated into the trunk, I have this power distribution block here, but you would just remove the power wire off your battery so you can take the charge harness off. And I just take these off, and then the charge harness comes with the engine, and then these other wires is the ones that we disconnected earlier from the fuse box up here, so that's why you got to disconnect them from the fuse box. And then you can keep the charge harness with the engine, and it makes it a lot easier. So now I'm going to disconnect my catch can lines. I am going to keep the catch can on the body just because it's already bolted to the body. This is a lot easier. I loosened these up earlier, so all I'm doing is removing these bungs. We're just going to take all these hoses and just slap them out of the way over here. You can zip tie them down or whatever, but just make sure they're out of the way. So now I am disconnecting the exhaust. This is where you guys would disconnect it from the header. I have a V-band back here. I'm just removing the nut off the V-band clamp. And I like to keep the header on the car, in this case the turbo manifold, and then just disconnect the downpipe from the car. This way you don't have to remove the O2 sensor or the Y-band or any of that. So this is the clamp I was taking off. I'll just loosening it up. So now the exhaust is off, and when you pull it out, the turbo manifold or your header along with the turbo will come out and keep the exhaust with the car. So now you're going to get the shifter cables off of the shift selector, and you're going to keep this with the car. So you can take the bracket off, keep the cables in the bracket, and take the bracket off of the transmission. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3 bolts. I already took off this first bolt. I'm going to work on these 2 bolts, and then I'm going to take these cotter pins out and then take the bracket off the transmission and slide it back and keep it with the car. So I'm just going to do these real quick and then show you after. Just wiggle them out. don't lose them. Just like that. And if you see the way that they're in, I like putting them back that way, because if you obviously put it in upside down, it's kind of hard to pull out. If you put it this way, it's kind of hard to pull out. But I mean, that's just personal preference, I guess. Just slide that up, slide that off, then just slide this back and out of the way, and that will stay with the car. And got some shims here. This is an aftermarket bracket, by the way, so yours might be a little bit different. So you're just gonna do this on both sides. I got hubcaps. Take a small flathead, or just take the wheels off. Just pry this off. These are 36 mils. This one, there's a little groove in the axle. You would take a flathead and pry off the axle nut slightly, because normally what you do is you take a flathead and hit it to where it bends into this groove so it doesn't back off. I didn't hit mine back in. Mine's Loctite on. So I'm just gonna take a 36 mil axle nut to this with the impact and hope it comes off, because these are torqued down to about 130. Don't quote me on that. I'm just gonna take my gun now. Make sure it's on there. Just like that, just comes off. I'll do the same for the other side, and then I'll show you how to disconnect the lower control arm to get the axle out. So, took the axle nut off, took the wheel off. Now we're gonna come under the car, and we're gonna take off the lower control arm. So there's 1, 2 nuts, 1 bolt. I can't give you the size for these because they're different from the OEM ones, but for me it's 19 mil, 17 mil. Just break those loose, and I'm gonna take those out, and I'll show you what to do from there. Might be a little hard for you guys to see. I'm going to, so I got these bolts out, the 2 nuts and the 1 bolt. I'm going to take my pry bar, and I'm going to jam it in between the ball joint and the lower control arm and pry on it. I'm gonna have to use 2 hands, so I'm sorry if this is not the greatest angle. So basically, I just wedge this in here, get the ball joint out, and I just push it out of the way, just like that. And then you can pull the axle through this side. If it doesn't want to come out, you can give it a couple taps from the front side with a mallet, a soft hammer, and just like that, the axle's out of the hub. And then I'll show you how to fully take it off of the half shaft. So now I'm underneath the car. This is the front of the car. Just go underneath. Here's the transmission. Before you pull the axles out, you need to make sure that you drain the transmission of its fluid. So to do that, you find the drain bung, which is this right here. There's no socket for it, so you take your 3/8 ratchet, put it into the bung, and just crack it loose. Just like that. I just gave it a smack with the mallet here. Try and catch it. And just like that. Just gonna drain it out. Let it drain, do its thing before I pull the axle out. But I will be taking out the bolts out of the lower control arm for now while this drains out. So this is the driver's side. You're going to take your pry bar, wedge it in between the axle and the casing of the transmission, and just pry on it. I'm gonna put some force on it. I like to spin the axle also as I'm doing it. So like I'll do one side, pry on it, Then I'll spin it, probably on the opposite side. But I'm gonna need to give it a little smack with my mallet here. Now I'm gonna spin it. Same thing. Couple taps. And just like that. You see it freeing up. And then just wiggle it out. And that's that. That's for the driver's side. The passenger side is a little bit different because there's a half shaft. So give me a second, I'll show you guys that side. That goes into the transmission here. We're not going to unbolt the half shaft from the block, but we're going to take a 1/2 inch extension here, and we're going to place it right on the back side of the axle like this, and we're going to hit from this side. So I'm going to show you guys this now. Hopefully you guys can see that. What I'm doing is putting the half shaft, the 1/2 inch extension, and tapping on the axle itself and not the half shaft. You can do the same thing, spin it and hit it. It starts coming out. It's a good idea to have somebody on the other side and catch it so it doesn't smack on the ground, and just like that, the axle's free from the half shaft. So we have the chain hooked up on that bracket I showed you, and I'm also going to try with another point here to try and keep the motor from swaying back and forth, so it's kind of like a triangle. And on this side I just got my mount in here. So now you're going to break this 17 mil on this bracket, and there's also the 17 mil on the back side. But before you do this, you want to make sure there's some tension on the chain, because you don't want it to just drop as you loosen it. But once as you loosen these, the motor will start dropping and coming out. So it's good to have 2 people watching to make sure nothing's getting snagged as you're pulling this out. This is the most delicate part, so I'm just going to impact these off. There's one. There's 2. So take those out. Don't lose them. Now this other side, they're a bit more hidden, but it's basically the same thing. Just mess this, wiggle it down into there. Zap that. And then there's one hidden in the back. It's good to use a long extension with a 17 on the impact. So now the motor is completely free from all 4 of the mounts. And the only thing holding the engine up right now is the crank. So take these bolts, don't lose them. So now we're just going to get this out. We're just going to set the camera up on the tripod and just wiggle it out. You're going to want to be very mindful of the ABS, as the engine likes to get caught up on these brake lines here. So it's good to have one person on each side. And if you're keeping the headers on, just be very mindful of the windshield. You're going to want to pull forward slightly up, and then kind of rotate the motor. You'll see it as we're pulling it out here. That's what we'll call it. That's how you pull your motor out in like an hour. Oh, looks like this turbo's gone. That's a lot of oil, but yeah, looks like that turbo's gone. One thing, if you guys do have an oil pressure switch, remember to take it out. Remember to disconnect it and unplug it. And yeah, that's it, guys. Thanks for watching.